Good afternoon, Abbotsford residents. I'm Mr. Pelican. I'm running for your Commander-in-Chief of Abbotsford. And the first thing we're going to do is remove the Abbotsford Police, the upper management and the police that were in organized crime. I showed you when I came along this journey that there's no better man than me to run this town. I learned from the best, and let me state some of their names. Peter Wall of Wall Financial, when we were working and building the wall centers, and over to Mike Dakota of Ani. Mike Dakota taught me so much. That information and that knowledge I'm going to bring to Abbotsford to lower your taxes, but I'm going to put Abbotsford back on tracks. The first thing we're going to do is get the RCMP into Abbotsford, and we're going to go after that organized crime. Today I want to bring you a special podcast, a special story. My phone's been ringing, people have been seeing me, flying up the city, all kinds of things. We know Ross Siemens was loaded for Henry to keep the official community plan, the Rom-Funk jobs and everything. Today I want to give you a special podcast. I'm challenging one of my friends, Eric Nivel, to come back, a conservative. Come back, let's talk, let's see what went wrong. He was the man that started this big fight with Henry's son, and challenged the establishment. And then all of a sudden, Nivel folded, and no one could figure out why he went behind Mike de Jong after the whole thing that Henry did to him, and Mike didn't stand up. Then the cheating on Mike's signs in Mill Lake through the election and the loading. We need to get Nivel back on track and say, Nivel, you were the voice of starting this thing and the inside racketeering, the collaborating, what Henry's son was doing. Today, I want to show you what Henry's son did. Henry's son is Braun that showed me the information of his dad, Ty Cad Fast, Mike de Jong, and the threats out of the Abbotsford Police Department, but above all, the city councils in his dad's house, ringing the elections, changing job sites, walking in, organized crime, and that crime was being covered up by the Abbotsford Police. Insider trading, racketeering, and then the cops came and threatened you. Today, look at this sign. Who's this man? Is Braun, Blue Sky. Braun was the Economic Development Officer in Abbotsford. Let me tell you what the two chambers said. Chamber of Mission, Chamber of Abbotsford, fighting over each other, and we knew when PAM used the chamber and when Great Toes blocked me. Pamela Alexis was the Minister of Ag, she was the MLA. And she was the mayor. When she stopped and lost here because Henry jinxed her and Rianne Gasper, everybody went behind her to drive her in and teach Pam a lesson. When she left that position as MLA, as the Minister of Ag, she's not allowed to have any contact to the Ag for 5 years. That's the same in Abbotsford. It's the same in anywhere. This little punk that was doing his dad's business under Ross Siemens, remember what he did? His dad stepped off. Braun was in front of Ross, and Ross went, oh, Darren, anything for you, Darren, I'll help you. And he ran that decision. And they were doing that. This punk, Braun, was the Economic Development Officer. He should never, as an upper establishment of Abbotsford City manager, Peter Sparanese, city engineers, building inspector, and economic development officer should never do business in Abbotsford. He knows the official community plan, and everybody in the city will give him this job to help it through and award this job. This is what Nivel was attacking. This is why these companies are using this kid, Braun of Blue Sky. He went out. You don't leave a job, ladies and gentlemen, as an economic development officer being paid big money and run instead up your business. It's only he set up in Abbotsford, and he only could deal in Abbotsford because that's where he moved out of the city of being the economic development officer and went, oh, look at that. Now I can go out on my own and everybody's got to go to me. We know two things in the city of Abbotsford. Ross Siemens will always give him the decisions. We saw that in the conflict of interest on the bus that knocked our homes down, the houses. And we know Dave Lowenswell and Abbotsford Firstwell. The only one that will probably vote it down is Les Markman. But it calls for guys like Eric Nivel to get back with the true conservatives, the people that are fighting for the town, and say, remember the story that Nivel brought when he was running in the election against Braun and Henry Braun owning land and doing this? This man was the economic development officer under his dad and under Ross Siemens, being awarded all the cozy jobs. We need to make sure that this gets stopped. This is how this stuff was taking place through in Abbotsford. He set up the wrong punks for his dad. He set up all the jobs. He was working endless only for his dad. Now to be rewarded, you go out, son, you start your own company, and we'll fool the law, and under blue sky, we'll make sure everybody gets the zoning. He should have went into Chilliwack, or he should have went into Hope, or Boston Bar, and set up the business there. He should never do it in the Abbotsford. Pamela Alexis got burnt and got fried, and she can't get any money through the back doors when she left. You should never be allowed to do business. Under my mayorship, under my ticket, anybody in upper management living the city will never be allowed to operate business up until 5 years after your term's up, because you know the official community plan, and you know your friends. And you can see it. Ross Siemens was his friend. That's why he voted them decisions through when he stood in front of Ross and helped them. This is why we need the great RCMP in Abbotsford. No, Watts is going gangs, 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 and beating the homeless, and fentanyl, 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 fentanyl. I want you to have a look, Watts. Insider trading, racketeering, and fraud. And he was the economic development officer, and he's warded all these cozy jobs. And then, by the way, here's his phone number, and you can pick it up. This is when Braun started spouting his mouth. Ladies and gentlemen, as your mayor, I'm going to bring the RCMP in. We're going to go after this punk Braun, Henry's son, and we're going to go after that inside trader. We're going to get your taxes lowered, and we're going to go after everything that was frauded, from the homeless to the rocks to everything. And we're going to make it right. But we're going to get the best, the RCMP, and we're going to bring them in, and we're going to shit-kick that Abbotsford police flying. Live, ladies and gentlemen, Abbotsford, British Columbia. Eric Nivel, Abbotsford's calling you back, and they want some kind of stuff put on Facebook and saying, Mr. Pelican's right, Nivel. Mr. Pelican's right. Who asked you to lay down? Who asked you to lay down? What's one of the establishment got to you and asked you to lay down? And that's 200 feet from Nivel's office. Live, Abbotsford, Fraser Valley.